Hey everyone, welcome back to Engelbart Gaming. It's been a while since I did a controller review, so I've got a review of not one, not two, but three controllers today. Sort of. You see, I'll be looking at three versions of the 8Bitdo Ultimate Controller. And yes, it is pronounced 8Bitdo. I looked that up to be sure. It used to be 8Bitdo when they launched earlier, but apparently that sounded a little too much like Nintendo, and they were worried they might get sued or something. Nintendo? Being litigious for no reason? Never. Anyway, there's about 6 versions of the 8Bitdo Ultimate Controller available, and I'll be looking at 3 of them today. I've got the wired Xbox/PC controller, I've got the 2.4 GHz controller that supports D input and X input, and then finally I'll be looking at the ultimate version of the Ultimate Controller that supports both 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth wireless in the same controller, and also supports many modern platforms, even though it's really geared more towards the Switch, and you'll see why in just a moment. So first, a little bit of ancient history. I've done reviews on some 8Bitdo controllers in the past that are really old and cringeworthy at this point. I'll link them below so I can be humiliated afresh. But long story short, I had the SN30 Pro controller, which is the Super Nintendo based one. That ended up being complete and absolute garbage. It completely stopped working after just a few months, and nothing would fix it. Not resetting it, not trying to do firmware updates, it just died on me entirely. Now on the flip side, I also have their M30 Sega Genesis inspired controller. That one has been fantastic. It's worked great for the years that I've had it, and I've never had an issue with it. Still, I've been kind of burned so bad by the SN30 Pro that I've tended to avoid most of their stuff over the years, and I haven't really bought anything else from them. However, when I saw these 3 controllers pop up on old Amazon Vine, I figured, what the hell, so here we are. So I'm going to kick things off here by telling you what's similar about these controllers, and we'll go on to differences in performance and things like that. The basic design and shape is pretty much identical for all 3 of these controllers, as you'd probably expect. Now, I haven't gone and weighed them to get specific results, but going by feel alone, the weight is very similar across all 3 models too. Now, these controllers all have the sort of standard Xbox-style design with asymmetrical analog sticks, 4 face buttons, 2 shoulder bumpers, 2 shoulder triggers, the appropriate menu keys, and the like. All 3 versions I've got here also have 2 paddle-style buttons on the back. And the Bluetooth controller has a manual sync button on it. The controllers also all have turbo fire on them, if you're so inclined to use it. Now, how do these controllers feel? Well, not too bad. Now, the range of 8Bitdo Ultimate controllers go in price from $20 for the most basic wired version up to about $80 for the combo Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz version. The controllers all feel suitably durable, and the materials and build quality are generally decent. The buttons are very convex, as is often the case with Xbox-style controllers, and I don't find them super comfortable personally. They're also a smidge smaller than many other third-party Xbox-style controllers out there from other companies. The analog sticks are fine and dandy. I know at least some of the more expensive versions are Hall effects, if that's important to you. Not sure about the cheaper versions, you'll have to look and see, since some features do vary along the line. The shoulder bumpers and triggers are fine. The paddles on back, especially for me, can be a little bit too easy to hit by accident. So I usually just don't assign them to anything, and that way I never have to worry about it. The one thing I really actively don't like about these controllers is the D-pad. It's just way too hard and stiff.
That's what she said!
But seriously, it feels bad.
That's what she said.
That's my joke. Damn it, Dwight.
Okay, enough. I do mean it though. The D-pad isn't good. It should be made of slightly softer material, and the pivot point should be a little better. It should pivot a little more easily. Alright, so let's talk some cosmetic differences. Obviously, I have 2 white controllers and a black one. They do come in a few other colors also. My wired white controller is Xbox branded. So if you look at the box, which I'll show you now, they even sell it as an Xbox sort of official third-party controller. It's got the Xbox logo and everything, and the menu button is the Xbox logo button. The black controller you see here, this is the one that supports both Bluetooth and 2.4 GHz wireless protocols. You'll also notice this one has Nintendo-style button layouts for the face buttons. We have the reversed XY and AB buttons like you would see on the Switch or any of their controllers dating back to the Super Nintendo. Now this one also comes with this charging cradle, a USB dongle, and a USB-C cable. The final controller I'm going to show you today is this one, which I'll refer to as the in-betweener. This one only supports 2.4 GHz for wireless play, and it doesn't have any Xbox branding, but the buttons are more of the normal Dreamcast/Xbox layout with A, B, X, Y instead of the reversed switch buttons like on the black controller. Now this one here does also come with the charging cradle, USB dongle, and the USB-C cable. Now let me tell you my favorite part about these two controllers that come with the cradle, and some reviewers have missed this in the past. So let's talk about the dongle.
That's what she said.
And seriously, the dongle is probably the best part about this thing. It's stored in the compartment on the bottom of the cradle. You can take it out of there and you can plug it into your PC or your game system or whatever single board computer you're using, and it'll work like you would expect. However, this is the thing that a lot of people missed, especially in early reviews of this controller. The compartment at the bottom of the cradle is not just for storage. It's got an actual functional USB port inside it, and you can just leave the dongle plugged into the cradle and then plug the cradle into your gaming device, and voila, no need for an extra USB port. So why this is so good is, for me, I run into problems sometimes with wireless interference just because of the amount of things I have, and I can set the cradle, in front of the computer or whatever device I'm using this thing in to get it a little bit closer, and it prevents problems of lag and disconnection. So I love this feature, and this is how I use both of my wireless versions. Now you may see some other reviews where they make a big deal out of lag tests, and that information is good to have. I don't have 1,000 frames per second speed camera. I don't have 1,000,000 frames per second speed camera, so I'm not going to bother doing any janky lag test for you. What I'll tell you is this: when playing games via emulators, even without run ahead, the response time on both the wireless and wire controllers were fine. I didn't feel any, severe lag. It didn't feel like it was worse than any other decent controller that I've used. Now I enabled run ahead, which of course made a perceptible difference, but it really wasn't even bad without it. For regular old current gen games, performance was fine. The wired controller, or using wires to connect the wireless ones, is the way to go if you want to have the lowest latency possible. And I will also note that I've only used these controllers on about 3 or 4 different Windows-based PCs. I didn't use them with any other devices. Anyway, here's some footage of me testing it out with some games that require precision controls like Street Fighter, Super Metroid, and some others. Now I did decide to include just a little bit of off-screen footage here so you can see the controller and the screen in the same frame, so you can tell, if the lag seems like it's too bad for you. Okay, now let's talk about extras. So I've already mentioned the charging cradle, the turbo fire button, and a few other features, but let's sort of collect everything in one spot here. We've got the ultimate 2.4 GHz of Bluetooth controller here. This one has a switch on the back that lets you toggle which wireless operation mode you're using between the 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth options. The 2.4 GHz only controller has a switch that lets you toggle between X input and D input mode. Every version has the 2 paddle buttons on the back that I mentioned earlier. And of course the wired version is the only one of these 3 that has a headphone jack built right into it. And one last cool thing I'll mention for both versions that use the charging cradle: if you have the cradle plugged into your computer and the controller is already paired and everything and ready to go, you can set the controller directly into the cradle to shut it off and put it into charging immediately. What's really cool is when you take the controller off of the cradle, it automatically pairs and is connected and is ready to go. You don't have to manually turn on the controller or anything. So that's another feature that I really liked on here. So let's talk a little bit more about some of the overall negatives here. I do have some design quibbles, as I mentioned, sort of like the size and shape of the face buttons and the material and feel of the D-pad. Now, despite those, I would still say the Ultimate controller is pretty good overall. It's not my absolute favorite general purpose controller, but it is very good. And I do have plenty of other modern controllers I can take a look at. If you guys like this stuff, let me know and I'll do some other controller reviews. But staying on task, here are my final thoughts on each of these 8BitDo Ultimate controllers. Now the wired Xbox controller here is a nice controller for those on a budget that want some extra features without paying an arm and a leg. Again, not my favorite controller even in the price range, but it is good and I do like it. I have no problem recommending it. Just be aware that the D-pad isn't so hot, and you get real bubble buttons that are a little too small and a little too convex. The wire is also permanently attached, so you better make sure you take care of it, because if it gets damaged, it'll be hard to fix. Now next up, the in-betweener here, the 2.4 GHz controller, is a great option for those who only want to use it for modern PC gaming or emulation. I've been using it at a range of about 15 feet, which often causes severe lag and interference problems in my house, but after using this thing for almost a month in the location that's been one of the worst for lag for me, I've yet to experience any kind of problem with it. The size and feel is pretty much identical to the wired version. This is a little cheaper than the combo 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth unit also. You will notice this one does not have the headphone jack that the wired version does. So if you don't need a Bluetooth connection, if you don't intend to use it with Android or other mobile devices, then this one is probably going to be fine for most people and is a great middle ground if it fits in your price range. And then the 2.4 GHz and Bluetooth combo Ultimate controller is a very nice controller that handles every kind of connection you could possibly want. And this is the controller that I would get if you use a lot of different types of devices. Note that it's more expensive than the 2.4 GHz only version, as you'd expect. Just keep in mind for this one I've got here, it's sort of designed more for the Switch, so the reversed buttons may annoy some people. They're only reversed by label, not by function. So if you're using them, with modern games or modern emulators, it maps the buttons correctly by position rather than the label of the button. And I know the button thing can be annoying to some people, and I understand that. Also, the lack of a headphone jack here may be a deal breaker depending on your setup. But for the most part, it works good and it feels good. So all three of these controllers, as I've mentioned many times, feel and perform very similarly. Because of that, I'm going to give a single review score to all three of them. So in the end, I'm going to score the 8BitDo Ultimate Controller an 8 out of 10. Alright, and there we are, a review of these three controllers. I'm just giving them one review because they're very similar to each other, and I can't say that one is the clear and definite winner or is really any better than the others. They all offer something unique versus the other ones. If you're a gamer on a budget, you just want something that works and isn't a hassle to deal with, well, the wired Xbox version has you covered. On the other hand, if money is no object and you want something that just works with everything possible, well, you've got the Ultimate version that supports both wireless protocols. Or if you're an in-betweener who just wants something wireless that's easy to use and get going, well, you're covered there too. So they've got a controller that fits just about anybody's budget or tech needs. Now, considering one of the things I said at the beginning of the video here with the trouble I've had with that SN30 Pro, I'll tell you I've had these all for about a month, and I haven't had one shred of a problem with any of them so far, and hopefully it'll stay that way. In the event that something does go wrong with them later, you'll see a link in a card in this video and something else in the description, where I'll update you on that and let you know what's happening. I don't anticipate having to do that, but if it does happen, that's how I'm going to handle it. Alright, so now, it's your turn. What about you? Do any of you have any version of the 8BitDo Ultimate Controller? What's your experience been like with it? Have you had any problems? Is there anything that you feel I should have covered here that didn't, that you think is just great about it? Tell me all about your experiences in the comments. And that'll do it for this video, my current and retro gaming friends. If you enjoyed the video, please toss it a like and share it online somewhere. If you haven't yet, hey, subscribe to the channel. Hit the notification bell so you'll never miss one of my videos. If you want to support the work that I do here, I now have set up channel memberships just recently, or you can support me on Patreon or Ko-fi. I will have links both in the description and to follow at the end of the video. With that, I'll say thanks for watching, and see me later.